Everybody ready?
We're ready.
Okay, call to order 8:32. Any additions to the agenda?
No.
None? Perfect. Delegations, Tanner Counts.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Oh, sorry. Council Olson, all in favor? Carried.
Look how awake everybody is.
We're into it today. You having a beard on?
Hey, the floor is yours, Tanner.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, we're starting up there.
So just wanted to do the update for you guys again, like we did last year, to be transparent on where we're at, seeing as we owe you guys some money, so. Away we go. Scroll down to the first slide. So the wins, we had their Seymour Cup again. There's only 8 teams came out, but it's an early bonspiel, so it's just something we're trying to grow. Farmers bonspiel was up from last year. Mixed bonspiel, we ran at the same time as the Cowboys hockey tournament, which works really well for the bar for us because they support us pretty well. We had 2 teams out of Calgary come this year for that. And they're trying to get another 5 to 7 teams to come with them next year for it. They had such a good time in town. Ladies bonspiel had 14 teams, which is an increase again from last year. We hosted Pollockville's farmers, their ice plant was down, so they needed to do some fundraising, so it was a beneficial thing for both of us to do. Ed, they're coming out again to help or, join the club, teaching some kids how to curl. We also the Alberta Ladies Club Championship qualifier. There's 16 teams, all from Okotoks, Canmore, Chestermere, Calgary area.
Everywhere except for Hanna.
Yeah.
And so next year we need a team from Hanna to participate.
If whichever one we get, yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I was speaking with one of the participants and they were just thrilled with the treatment they got.
Oh, that's good.
And how well everything went.
Oh, I talked to Curling Alberta and asked if they had heard anything. She said no, but I only ever hear complaints, so this is a good thing. We got a casino in 2023, raised about $35,000 at that. So that promptly went and paid a couple power bills. So yeah, we appreciate the town holding some debt for us. We're working to get it paid, but it's best we can. We get another casino, I think in 26. So that'll help.
You said 35, but it shows 30?
It said around 30. We didn't know the
Okay.
exact
Okay,
number when I did
perfect.
that, but I just got it. Again, utilities and goods are rising. Men's league was lower than expected. We only had 8 teams in our league this year, but mixed league, we had 13. So we were full plus 1 team. So yeah, December, we're hosting the Elks National Championship. We're on the list to host another Curling Alberta event, whether that be the Men's Club Championship or a qualifier for Scotty's Provincials or Briar Provincials, one of those. I put in to host one every year for the next 4 years, so. We're gonna run a beginners league this fall as well, so it'll be a half season for less than 5 years experience, and hopefully we can get 2 or 3 teams out of that. The idea is you pay for the first half, and then if you wanna go continue, you can join the regular league for the second half of the season. And if you only wanna do the beginners league for the first half, that's all you do. Again, Curling Alberta, I've talked to them again about facility for international teams to come practice at if they need ice. Because it can be hard to find ice. With 6 sheets, we're definitely the biggest club within 200 miles of any direction, so. I haven't had much luck on that yet. You can just kind of put it out.
Home is booked quite a bit with.
Yes, yeah, sometimes if there's an event going on,
Yeah.
they need something, right, so. I don't have high hopes that we're gonna get some big international team out practicing, but you never know.
Accommodation.
Yeah, you
is a
can,
bit of a
Doesn't hurt to
issue
dream.
too.
yeah, you can always ask, right, so. We got some more logos in the ice. We're starting to put rings in, like full house rings. We got 3 for next year now, so there'll be Westmet, Original 16, and the Curling Club has one of their own that was paid for by donations.
And can anybody, sorry, Tanner, can anybody sign up to do that? And what is the cost around that?
I believe it's about $1,200 to get the rings built. And then the first year would be a free if you're paying for the rings, and the second year is 50% of what we would charge, which I believe is $500. Then the third year is full advertising rate after that. So we kind of step it up because the upfront cost is a lot.
And so are you looking for advertisers? And
Yes. We will. We also need to get new carpets on the sides and the back and the front of the playing area. I did the math on that, is about $3,000 a side. So we're trying to find a way to get logos on it, to get some sponsorship to pay for at least part of that.
So Tanner, just a question, bumper walls, you guys were happy with?
Yes, mostly happy with it.
Okay.
We think we had them too far in the ice this year, so the rocks would get up underneath them a bit. But they were a lot easier to put in, and I thought they looked pretty good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the way that, the benches are
Yeah,
attached, Bill provided those benches midway, which I think is important.
yeah, we had a team from Stettler come out and they also have 6 sheets, I think, or 5. And we had benches in, and they've been arguing with their ice maker to put in benches for about 15 years. They were able to take pictures. Show them how that it can be
This is
done.
how it's done.
Yeah, like this is in fact how you can do
So
this.
you were short though, one
couple,
set, right?
yeah.
So are you gonna,
No, we're gonna leave it as is using the wall on the sheet 6.
okay,
Because that sheet is such a bugger to
Yeah.
keep. I think it makes that a little easier. And if you got juniors playing, then they have full bumper walls on both
Okay.
sides.
okay, no, good.
So yeah, again, facelift downstairs. I think the bathrooms are needing some work here in the
Yeah,
short
no,
term.
we haven't got any budget for it, but we've talked about
Yeah.
it. I use the term, they're utilitarian, they're functional, they're
Not pretty, but
real
they're
pretty,
functional.
but
Yeah.
they're functional, so.
And the upstairs bar, that's of course on us, and we're gonna start looking at how we can do some upgrades up there and make it a little nicer, more inviting. Although I don't think there's a ton wrong with it, it's just things need facelifts and, right? We did the bathrooms up there about 3 years ago. Yeah, we had our first cornhole tournament in August of 2023. We had 32 teams. It was, I think, a great success. A lot of people were pretty happy about it. Made a couple $1,000 for us, so hopefully it grows again this year. And then lastly, the financials. So I didn't put it on this slide because I didn't have it in tonight, but you'll have the sheet in front of you. Grand total, bar, casino, everything. Our total income was about $125,000 this year. That being said, our total expenses were 110. So 41,000 of that went to utilities. And it's showing a net income of $15,000. That's not a real net income because that will be paid into our bill here very shortly. We are gonna take some of the money and put it in a GIC that we do have sitting in our account just to kind of make some money off of it while keeping enough to operate for the year. Cause you gotta try and do something, right? So, yeah. Custom work went up a little bit. We gave our ice maker a little more money because I don't believe that's been increased in about 15 years. I think it was about time to do that. The bar did well. And donations were higher than they have been. Signs and everything did well. So that's my little spiel. Any questions?
how much, do we contribute other than, I know, we are kind of the bank for you guys until you
Yep.
pay your debt, but do we contribute anything, to the curling club on an annual basis?
There's the.
So we don't write them a check or
No.
pay them anything, but we share the costs of the operating costs between the curling season. It's, as you see in the agreement, we charge them certain percentages of utilities. We pay the rest and we pay all the utilities in the summer. Couple other things that we've done recently, obviously, when we replaced the condenser the arena would be not this fall, the fall
Yeah.
before, we didn't charge the curling club anything for that repair. We also, I think in the last little while, we converted all the lights to LED. And the thing we did have in our budget, and we'll talk about it later, was we were checking the potential of having to paint the curling rink interior. But I think we've decided it's still in decent enough shape that it doesn't need to be painted inside. So we haven't, knowing the situation, the financial situation they're in, we haven't asked them to pay for any of those upgrades that we've done on the facilities, so.
So I'm just wondering, in comparison to our other facilities.
And the other thing, sorry, I just remembered, the other thing too, as you may know from the agreement, so we offer them a 33% subsidy. So if their bill is supposed to be $100,000 for easy math, we charge them 67. So we've got since 2014 to try and make sure that they're sustainable, and so that's the other contribution we make on an annual basis.
So I guess I'm just trying to think this through, with the other facilities, like the arena. So we, the town owns the arena, they operate the arena, they pay for all the expenses of the arena. And then minor hockey just pays for their time in to using the
We charge the
facility.
users an hourly rate.
But all the expenses around the arena belong to the town then,
Yeah.
virtually. So I guess, how is the curling rink different?
Well, the curling rink's different because we give them control of the curling rink for the
We can kind of.
season from October to March, it's theirs.
All the advertising in the curling rink is the curling
Theirs.
rinks.
Yeah,
And they control who's in, who's out,
Yeah.
and what time and what events, that's theirs. They're not scheduled through the town.
But I guess it's still our facility then, right?
Yeah.
Is it still our facility?
Yeah, we lease that portion to them for those 6 months.
So we're just asking them for rent or lease in that time, that's it?
Yes.
Just in that time, okay, so
Yeah.
similar to,
Yeah, once they're out, the season's done, then all the bills are the town's.
so then I guess my other question is, why would you guys be spending money on upgrading the bar or the bathroom? Or
cause
doing anything in
the
the
lounge is
facility?
all ours. That's always been the.
The lounge
agreement.
has
We
always
own
been the
lounge.
curling club, so if someone calls the town to book the lounge, we can't book the lounge. We direct them to Tanner, and then Tanner will make a decision that it's available, and they'll rent it out at their cost. It's always been kind of set up that way, I think primarily because it serves alcohol, and the town didn't want to necessarily be a part of that is serving alcohol. So it's been that way from day one, and any upgrades or repairs to the upstairs lounge part is curling clubs, but they generate revenue from the bar and manage who's in and who's out.
And we, like the bathrooms we did, that was all paid for by grants, and things like that.
Yeah,
I think that's half of it too, is because then you can apply for grants where
Yeah,
the town can't. necessarily.
exactly, right, for upgrades and things of that nature. We wanna try and do.
I guess I'm just trying to think of sustainability on a go-forward basis. I mean,
Yeah.
you've done a great job, Tanner, and I thank you for all the work you've done in the last, while, because it's created, I think, a bit more sustainability. But when I think of all our other, our community center, we own that. We do allow alcohol in there. I mean, it's
The
not an
groups do,
owner,
yeah.
groups do. I kind of sometimes think, why isn't the curling rink kind of
Yeah,
functionality on the same level so that we can create some sustainability around that facility? I don't know, because I hear more and more in some of these small communities, they're non-sustainable, they're closing their doors and shutting
Well,
down, so,
there's been hundreds of sheets of ice lost in Canada in the last
yes.
decade because it's so expensive to
Yes.
keep ice in it. Right, so,
but I do think as you can see from Tanner's financials, we have been able to, especially with this, we have been able to make some headway.
Yes.
So I think where we're at is probably pretty close to sustainable, and I've never been too worried about the club and their finances, because when we look at their financial sheet, yes, they owed the town $45,000, but they also, if they closed today, if Tanner came to me and said, curling club's done, we're not operating anymore, they still have that 50,000, 60,000 in the bank so they could pay their debt and not. It's not like they owe us 45,000 and they've got zero
Mhm.
in their bank account. They do have that there. We've always allowed them to carry that amount forward so that they could have dollars to be able to buy their supplies at the beginning of the year and pay their stuff. So I've always told them, I've always told the curling club, don't rush to pay the town. I know this sounds bad. Don't rush to pay the town. Make sure you're able to pay your staff, make sure you're able to pay the suppliers in town that you're buying the products from. They're first before us but as you said, they owe us 45, but if you look at their actual cash layout, they would be able to cover that if they decided they weren't gonna operate.
I don't think that philosophy sounds bad at all, Kim. We're aware that if, I think everybody here knows that if the curling club folds, then it's the town that has to pay for everything and administer everything.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair thought to
Yeah,
never put them in a spot due to payment to the town.
Yeah,
It's
And-
similar to the golf course. I mean, we own the golf course, the land the golf course is on, and all the improvements and everything are the golf courses.
yeah.
And we don't, well, we've forgiven the one loan from them and, yeah, we've got multiple ones, one in the last one in a while, but.
But at the end, at the end of the day, our relationship with the curling club is probably a little more
Oh,
hands-on
for sure,
than it is with the golf course.
because you share a facility. with
Yeah.
us.
And you have one staff member then?
just
Like,
one, yeah.
And Tanner,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm staff.
voluntary staff.
As much-
Powerless figurehead.
Now, from what I see compared to last year, this is significant,
Well, that's mostly a casino, right?
right? But just the residuals from all of these people and the groups that came out, the teams that were from, they're not all from here. Most of them are from elsewhere. So they're not here for 2 hours and go home. They're usually, some of them are here overnight,
Weekends.
the weekend completely, and they're spending money in town, and that's not reflected here.
No,
Which is, I think, why the town has always been so supportive. And it is a community building event.
Mm.
And you get the kids trying to come out and
Yeah.
hopefully get a couple of younger teams, so I'm very supportive. of
No,
this.
ever since, when they started and I first started meeting with them in 2013 about how do we keep the club sustainable? How do we keep them moving forward? That's always been in the back of everyone's mind is that it is an asset to our community.
Yes.
It does, two things. As you mentioned, it brings people to town who will spend money, whether they're staying in a hotel, whether they're at a restaurant, whether they're buying groceries. But it also is it's another item that we as a community can hang our hat on as an activity and say, we talk about live the lifestyle, you don't have curling, you've lost part of your lifestyle is gone. And so they're an important group and we want to make sure that they are successful and continue to be successful.
Sure.
And I think even though we have an agreement with them, I look at it as we're in a partnership. They need us and we need them and
Well, it's an investment as much as anything.
together we work together to make the best of it. So,
I do recommend, though, that you advertise more about the advertisement spaces
Yeah.
available. There's a lot of new businesses in town. Contacting the real estate centers and stuff, and just make sure that they're aware that this is an opportunity for them.
Yeah. And it does reach an outside audience too now, right? So which
Right,
helps.
exactly.
I had, the same individual that, I think there's a partnership too, or a lot of support from the, hotels and that sort of thing
Mhm.
for stuff that you're doing. And so a combination between, like this one individual said the hotel was amazing. They had the buffet breakfast that they don't get in Calgary, and so they figure that the rent that they pay for the rooms and such was reasonable, and the food that they got for breakfast, brunches and such was amazing. They said they'll be back for sure. So a combination between how our hotels are supporting those that are putting events on as well. And then the great job that you guys are doing, is huge for bringing people to town, so thank you.
Any other questions of Tanner?
No.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
thanks
you.
for meeting with me, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Been doing an awesome
Keep
job.
doing this and keep you guys posted.
You haven't got any gray yet, so you're doing fine.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Got a little salt and pepper in the beer the other day, so.
Curling, but.
Tanner, if you can work in a few more Sterling, because lots of us aren't on a team next year.
I will try.
Thank
I don't
you.
run that one. See you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Motion, we thank Tanner Kellis, President Hanna Curling Club, for his presentation and update on the activities at Hanna Curling Club. Councilor Warwick, all in favor? CEO report. Oh, you want, no, you sure? Positive? Well, we gotta ask one more time.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things. I am anxiously waiting date for startup meeting for the downtown project. Brooks has ordered their materials, ordering their stuff, getting their schedules ready. I've been told first part of May, we'll have our startup meeting and get the show on the road. Not much to report on the others. We haven't heard anything on the grant applications for both Pioneer Trail and Palliser and or
I'll text him.
or the bridge. So I'm expecting any time that we would hear some, but we haven't yet. PLRD hasn't approached me yet in terms of anything on water and sewer for their building. They have the information. Community center, that's kind of our one we're working on. So it's still progressing. All the material is here on site. Got an email last night. The hood installer is scheduled to be here 10:30 this morning to get the hood installed and get that part going. Once the hood is installed, then basically the rest of the work is our locals. So they have to just connect the hood to the makeup air unit, and they have to connect the hood to the exhaust vent on the roof. So they're ready to go. And then we have the fire suppression company. They're waiting to come in, and as soon as the hood's up, to install the fire suppression and make sure it works on the hood. So
So how long
4
does that-
days to spare, Kim, we're good.
yeah, it's a lot closer than I want it to be. And we told everybody that May 3rd is a drop dead date. It has to be ready to go back in. So
Sorry,
Go ahead, Councilor.
and how long does that take, the suppression? Is that?
that's not more than a day,
Perfect.
less than a day, I mean, we should say, so.
Okay.
So that's working, just for council's info. I did send out, an RFP for CAO recruitment, to 5 management recruiting firms. Asked the deadline to submit on May 3rd, so we will have proposals at the council meeting on the 14th that council can consider, selecting one to move forward. And I just wanted, no, I don't have any information on this. I just was in discussions with one of our local builders. And they were just inquiring, I know we've had this discussion informally, with previous councils about whether the town would be interested in partnering or
Yes,
building a spec home.
yeah, definitely.
So I just wanted to, I said I wasn't sure what the temperature of the spec home was with council anymore, especially with the second home in Fielding Place being started yesterday, that whether there was the same urgency. But I said I would have that discussion with council to see if there was interest in a spec home, town owning a spec home. And I'm not sure how it would work, whether we would basically retain the builder have them give us a budget on a spec home. We pay the bills. When it's over, it's ours. We list it, we sell it, or whether there's some sort of partnership. I'm not sure how technical that would get then in terms of who owns what, or whether it's a 50-50 split. But just wanted to see where everybody was at, if there's interest there.
I like the idea. I mean, of course, it depends on whatever agreement happens. There's a lot of stuff, but I think it's a good initiative to get things moving and get construction happening, and it's not a massive investment. And you're not gonna build 6 at a time. You build one, and if that happens, and if you consider doing another one, if it went well, go after that.
Well, ultimately, it's the town's asset.
Yeah.
And I know some of you have been on council longer than others. I know when Doug Griffiths was here and through one of his suggestions at that time, or recommendations at that time, was if the region would establish its own land development company or a Part 9 company in terms of whether it was a partnership with special areas, and we both threw a certain amount of money in a pot, and then that company would either get some houses built, sell them, reinvest that money back into the company, and then keep building. So
I think, just sitting in on the Alberta Health Services, meetings across the province, we had one here in Hanna most recently. One of the things that did come up was the fact that we didn't have any housing. And I know personally a situation where, a nursing family, had accepted a job here and couldn't find housing, so then they had to decline. But they did mention, that the fact that we're having trouble attracting and retaining, specialists is because we don't have, housing. So this might be an opportunity for us as well, so.
yeah, the trouble with that, and I think we've talked about this before too, even Prairie Land is having challenges for new teachers that are moving here. Again, it's trying to find the right style of house, mix of house. They would be probably comfortable with some of theirs being a duplex, fourplex, as long as they were in good shape. That's the main thing. As long as they're in good shape and they feel comfortable that, they're putting one of their staff into that accommodation.
It's interesting, the evolution of time. 50 years ago, there were teacherages, there were RCMP houses, there were houses for the ministers, there
Yeah.
were doctor houses. And we've gotten away from it, and now it's like we're coming back 50 years
Yeah.
later to the same scenario that we had then.
Yeah,
Well, I think the expense around them, because being a trustee for several years, I mean, we had teachers in a lot of our small communities. But of course, after a while too, that becomes a burden of expense. And so, when you don't use them and you're renting, most of those are being rented out, not to teachers anymore,
Yeah.
because teachers were, had their own accommodations. So they were being rented out to others. So, in some of those periods of time, they dissolved some of those, and now we're going back, well, we don't have housing, so now we need those, properties again, so. But, and I'm not saying that, for these spec homes that, that primarily it would be to suit, the professionals that come to, it might be for, locals. It might be for individuals, but if they do sell and we have the possible opportunity to provide that even for, our people, locals, I think I'm in favor of it.
no, that's good. I just had a discussion, was brought up, and I was like, well, I'll have to, I want to double check with council to see what their thoughts on it.
Before we get away from Palliser Pioneer,
Yeah,
I've noticed, and more so in the last probably, well, since it snows, not being when it snows, but is there a need to maybe change the configuration of Palliser and put a walking lane on the east side? Right now, it's just a line down the middle of the street, and
It's kind of a.
well, it's kind of, but not. Cause I mean, we have people, there's lots of people walking,
yeah.
lots of people riding their bikes. And I just thought, if it's a matter of putting another line on the ground to
Delineate.
Delineate a little
Delineate.
bit.
Is
Yeah,
that like
but-
a side lane then?
Well,
So,
just basically like a bike lane almost, but just, shift the center line over 4 feet or 3 feet or whatever it needs to be. And just give them an actual identified line to stay within and keep traffic out of it, I guess, for
Yeah.
lack of a better, because there's seems to be more and more people walking up to Tim Hortons and, it's just an observation.
Yeah, no.
that-
It certainly is an option, Mr. Mayor.
So there's a sidewalk and street facing Palliser. Like, is that not?
No, from the tourist, basically from the chamber
Oh.
sign down to Tim Hortons.
Oh, okay, my
Oh,
one
that
understand,
stretch of
okay,
the
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I see.
There
I
is
keep talking
there
about
is
this
stuff.
end. Okay.
There are people every day, all the time,
Yeah.
on the road.
Well, and, motor vehicle, like the little
Mo-
carts and
scooters,
stuff.
yeah.
Oh,
The trouble, it's one of the troubles you find yourselves in with development is back when the town was developed. They used the full width of the road, and as you can see, all of the businesses are built up right to
Yeah.
the curb, so it's not like we were fortunate when we put the trail in from the lodge to Nick's Restaurant there was ample right of way on the side that you
Yeah.
could use. So now to try and go back, and I think it's probably wouldn't be crazy hard on the east side until you got down to Tim's, because their rocks and their landscaping is
You'd have to be.
right up to the curb, so.
But I mean, they're getting there now, so I mean, if we
Yeah.
can get them there, I mean, I'm not in favor
Yeah.
of supporting any business over any other.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's more of a safety. concern.
100%.
And back to value add, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, if it's a matter of 5 gallons worth of paint to protect somebody, then get them down there and back, and it's everybody, like it's young, it's old,
Yeah.
it's. And it seems to be more and more prevalent all the
And
time.
it seems to be more prevalent on the east side than the west
Yeah.
side.
So, no,
Okay.
just a
Yeah.
thought, just.
No, it's definitely something to consider. So I will follow up with the local builder and just have, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just wondering, would that fall under Harvest Sky Economic Development, which is already supported by, the town and
Yeah.
areas in Youngstown?
No,
and
it's
everything?
certainly-
I wonder if that, because that is deemed as a separate entity,
Yeah, it
correct?
certainly could, Counselor Bowden, certainly could, yeah.
Yeah, and then we don't get involved with, well, who's hiring who and just sort of the internal conflict that may arise depending on the contractor and yada, 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 sort of thing, and, real estate agent and, who is chosen and that sort of thing.
If it's something that, obviously Harvest Sky would need some seed funding though,
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly, but
so,
it could still be
Yeah.
addressed through there.
100%.
Then it coming specifically to the town.
Yeah.
And then it removes the town then from that sort of
yeah, 100%.
exception and such.
So I think, I know Mark's away this week, but that might be an item, I'm not sure when you guys meet again.
I think it's a little bit ago, if we do our.
But it might be an idea worth, and I think if, the other thing too, from my perspective, if Harvest Sky thought that was a good initiative, good economic development initiative, and they wanted to get involved with it, they could certainly then put a proposal together to the town and to special areas and say, we'd like to do this. This is how we would manage it. This is how it would go. Would the town consider putting in, contributing 250,000? Would special areas consider 250,000? And you've got your pot and you could go from there. And with the intent that, if you sell the house, that money goes back to Harvest Sky for these purposes to continue land development. So that certainly would be an option.
Councilor Crowe?
I think it'd be, like a multi-dwelling would be more attractive. I mean, all you're satisfying here is one family.
Yeah.
If you put a multi, like even a duplex or a fourplex,
Yeah, and that's something that would be nice to have evaluated with the Harvest Site as a subcommittee, and you can get members of the public on there
Exactly,
too.
yeah,
And
and then
yeah,
you're
there's a
not
lot of
trading,
options.
yeah, you're still dealing with an.
I think the challenge, I don't disagree, Counselor Kroll. Challenge right now is having serviced land for multifamily. Because right now, we know the town owns Fielding Place, but that's zoned for single family. So I'm always a proponent that you don't want to have a single family, although it can happen, there could be a rezoning process to take some of those lots and turn them into a duplex or a fourplex or whatever, but it is zoned single family at the moment. We'd have to find whether there's some infill lots somewhere that would accommodate that, but that certainly would be an option.
The town owns, Adrian's old property, right?
Yep,
On the corner there?
yep,
Why couldn't that
it
be-
could be, yep, no, that could be used.
I mean,
Again, it'd have to be rezoned, because I think it's commercial, but it could be rezoned easy enough.
That wouldn't be a
Is there-
thing directions building.
That'd be
No.
a more appropriate spot
Yeah.
for.
Is
You
there,
got property over there by the lodge too, you know, it's already,
Yeah.
It's, well, I know when people say serviced, I wanna caution people when it's serviced, there is water and sewer to the property,
location, yeah.
but it's not serviced as if it would be throughout the entire area. Everything would have to still be constructed from that point.
And this, just for clarity, these wouldn't be rental units, they would be for resale, right? Because that'd be a different, whole different dynamic in
Correct.
and of itself, because that mean you have management and all the
Yeah,
rest.
no,
of it.
correct.
similar
Okay.
to the, across from the post office.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think there's any
yes.
any
okay.
vision of being in the rental market.
Yeah. Sure.
That lot that, Mr. Mole had owned, would that be somewhat contaminated? There wasn't there a gas station on the northeast corner?
There might have been,
Out in the boulevard.
But
there might have been.
yeah, so that,
But I don't know if the issue with contaminated soil to the end of the day is it's generally a challenge to get financing if it's contaminated. If there's no need for financing, it's not as big a deal.
right, okay, just not disposed, okay. And, yeah,
But I don't know, we haven't done any tests or anything on what was there, but we do know that history, that it could be.
mhm. Thank you.
I would think more on the street.
Then on the lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, when it comes to the real estate section, I mean, we averaged 50 homes for sale, and I think last I checked, it was 12. So there's not even availability for people to purchase a variety of homes. They're just not available for sale. So that's a real concern. In Oyen, what they did is they committed about 5 rooms in the lodge to
Mhm.
have availability for the teachers and hospital staff, because there was nowhere for them to go. And we are in a real pickle here when
Well,
it
I
comes to that.
thought they were talking about that a few years ago, about, taking a floor within the
That's for
lodge.
SL3, yeah, for supportive living 3.
But even for nurses and such, that they had talked about that a while back.
Yes, so Alberta Healthcare in Oyen, different region,
Mhm.
great support. Alberta Healthcare prepaid a year to have the rooms available. And so the nursing contract nurses can come in and out, no issue. In Hanna, Alberta Healthcare, different region, is not willing to pay for any accommodations. The nurses have to pay. Now you're talking about turning the lodge into a landlord for non-seniors, and that's not what we want.
Oh, that-
But
I don't know what it
having
is.
the support of the region has been difficult for here. So an alternative is for the town to commit to doing some.
Yeah.
Some real
That,
estate.
isn't there, like, I think we don't have rooms though. Like, we're full to capacity to even get anybody into any of our facilities, aren't we here?
The lodge?
Lodge?
No,
Lodge, it's got-
no, we're at,
About 2/3.
yeah, about 70%.
Yeah.
It's basically an entire floor is empty. Still,
So I wonder why.
during COVID, it was down to
40.
some percent. It was almost shut down.
Where, I remember so low here.
It's
Well,
gotten better because of
it's-
some changes.
It's actually all the lodges in Alberta. It's not just here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, It
That's
was,
why Wayne's able to take rooms and,
Okay.
and,
'Cause they
turn them
have the
into other
space.
options.
when they're starting construction so that they can have supportive living 3 and 4 in that facility as well. But it's all over Alberta, and one of the reasons, unfortunately, was during the COVID pandemic, they shut it down like it was a nursing home. But they treat the residents as tenants because they are just tenants. You're just paying for food, availability of food, you get housekeeping. So it's independent living, and yet the pandemic hit and it was thou shalt not, and locked them in their own apartment. It's a senior's apartment is what it is, and they locked them in as if it was a nursing home for their own sake. But that caused a lot of Albertans who like their freedom to say, I'm not gonna move in to a building that's gonna actually not let me get out of my building.
Right.
So that really, so it's starting to ease now, and we're having a significant uptick. It's actually been up almost 20%, so it's really, really exciting. But that's what caused it. It was just something that I don't want to live in an apartment that won't let me out.
Of course.
The Chinese did that, and we don't want that here, and we did it, and that was a terrible mistake.
I think the same goes when there's a breakout or something, they restrict access to and
They
stuff for,
completely restrict
Yeah,
access,
yeah.
yeah,
but
and they still do that to
safety.
this day.
for safety and such, but not necessarily about it.
It's safety, but it's difficult because
It's
this is
yeah.
just a subsidized apartment building, it's not a hospital, so that made it a little more difficult, hopefully they figure it out.
Thank
So
you.
I guess, just trying to find some direction or consensus, would people be willing to then have Harvest Sky initially look at this as something through their, through their organization? And I would look at, Councilors Warwick and Bowden if they want to put that on, Harvest Sky's agenda.
June 11th, yes, I
And
think it's
to
good.
just have that discussion if that's something that they would be interested in managing.
Sure. Yeah, I think that'd be a great thing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's where I think if you talk with Mr. Nakota, I think he would be very supportive of that. I know he's talked, then it won't be anything new for special areas because I know he's talked to Jordan on at different times, you know, about land investment and whether special areas would be interested in partnering. So
Because there are bare lots, there's one, along Second Avenue, just on the other side of the post office.
yeah, again, private.
Private.
Yeah.
What about the one at the end of that street? That's still private property as well.
Yes.
Where the old,
Dynasty was,
Dynasty
yeah.
was,
We still got the school property, it's wide open.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
school
lot of-
property's always been a potential option. Again, there'd be some work to do around that with the zoning and some public engagement with neighbors, depending on what type you want to build. Again, that's not our land at the moment,
Well, yeah,
so,
I don't know why we would continue on with the one project in Fielding Place and
Yeah,
yeah.
carry that forward while it appears to have more momentum than it has in
Yeah.
a very long time.
yeah, maybe some more.
It's just with the multi-family dwellings, if we're gonna look at that, then we have to do somewhere else.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, the Duke, like, I know we look at, the product that Dale and Daryl built there with the duplexes were quite successful. And whether there's a market for that, I believe there is. Again, that's something that, could be explored, but if you guys want to take that to
Yeah,
Harvest Sky Economic Development Corporation, then see what their thoughts of the board are around that, and then you can report back and we'll go from there.
and will you transfer the information that you have towards Mr. McCullough or?
Yeah, I'll have a discussion with him when he's back. I don't have a ton of information. There's just
No,
a
just
conversation that, again, for the builder, for them to, put $400,000 out on their own, without a sale gets a bit little risky, and I don't know if any of our builders are large enough that they want to hold that for very long, and that's why they approached us. Like most of the builders that you'll see now won't start building until they have a sale. To build a spec house, they're putting that money out, their own money out. And, you know, whether they have to sit on it for a period of time, that's a cost to them, so.
Who owns that property that is along a Pioneer or along Fox Lake Trail, just north of Building Place? That their property where you guys put.
I'm
a
sorry, I
Town
can't, I
owns,
can't.
sorry,
I
the
can't.
town owns that land. So Council Bowen is
I'm sorry.
talking about the land between Argue Drive on Fox Lake Trail and the Lutheran Church.
Oh, yes, yeah, okay.
Like right along the
Yeah, it's
the
urban
road
reserve.
there.
It's town owned,
Yeah.
town owned. And the town looked at that, I wasn't here, but, when they were looking at building lots and they chose Fielding Place lots versus that, it had basically a lot to do with, servicing sewer, requiring lift stations and stuff because it's a little bit lower, property, so. So that's why council of that day made the decision to build the lots on the other side of the street. Yeah. But that is owned by the town of Hanna.
Do we need any type of motion to support the spec home thing, Kim?
Well, you could, council could make a motion to, request that Harvest Sky Economic Development Corporation consider, looking at building spec home or spec property.
Council also would like to make that?
Yes, I would love to.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, on favorite part of the agenda?
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, we're at that time of the year. We want to have some discussion with council, on some spring budget adjustments. Prior to setting the tax rate and some tax rate options for council that we can bring forward to the May 14th council meeting. So just gonna do a review of the report. So council's aware, budget was approved, the December 12th, 2023 meeting. That budget anticipated that we would use $56,000 more municipal tax revenue, or 2% more than what was used in the previous year. When we left budget, we had a balanced budget at that time. Since that time, there's been some changes, some adjustments, some surprises. But we do have a revised recommended budget before you that has a surplus of $6,862. Primary reason for some adjustments is, as council's aware, our assessments, both residential and non-residential, had some, especially on the residential side, some significant increases. So our residential property assessment increased by just over 11 million. Our non-residential was about 17 or 1.7 million. So if we, assessment and tax rates go together. So if we would leave the same tax rates as we had in 2023 with the new assessment, that would provide additional municipal tax funds of $151,000. So council, as we talked before, council did look at a 2% increase at their December 12th meeting. We've went through the numbers, looked back and forth, and we are recommending a slightly different than that, but certainly we want to have discussion with council. So we're presenting the budget here with a 3% decrease to the municipal portion of the residential tax rate. So, and a 1% decrease to the municipal portion of the non-residential tax rate. So what that would mean is with the reduction of 3% on the residential side, we would still generate $65,000 more than we did last year. And on the non-residential side, we would generate, with a 1% decrease, we would generate 14,000 more, so a total of $80,000 more municipal revenue generated than 2023. With the increased assessment, both residential, non-residential, on our municipal tax rate, our school tax rate, and the senior foundation tax rates would be able to be reduced. Just how much council wishes to reduce them is the question. Even when we talk about a 3% decrease in tax rate, some people will still see an increase to their taxes. So I want to be clear about that. So I just want to go through some of the changes to the budgets that have been proposed. So as you can see, general municipal, we've recommended an increase of 26,787 in municipal tax revenue. School tax revenue is, we're told by the province how much we collect and what portion of it we collect from the residential, what portion we collect from the non-residential. But in total, we're correcting $3,200 more than what we collected last year. So based on assessment, school tax rates will need to be decreased by the appropriate amount to generate that $3,200. Acadia came in with their requisition $800 less than last year. So we split the requisition between residential and non-residential, so we would decrease the tax rate for both of those for the Acadia requisition by 0.0429. We looked at the penalties on taxes and we bumped that number up to $4,600, which represents the 3-year average. So it's not anything that I think is out of line. I think it's certainly doable. On the administration side, on the revenue, there's an increase. Obviously, since we approved the budget, we've rented out 2 more offices in the west office here. So that'll bring in $6,300 more. We'll have less drawn reserves from the storefront incentive funds. We've basically set that $6,000 aside, and if we use it, what we don't use, we bring in. We had a storefront incentive at the end of 23 that we paid, so there's only 3,000 in that reserve to bring forward. The original budget had 6. As council knows, we did remove the council chamber renovation from the budget, so there's a corresponding loss in revenue because we were bringing that in from reserves, and a corresponding reduction in expenses. The one thing we missed through the budget in December was, we're calling it the benefit reserve interest. So council's aware, we took back some of the funds out of our benefit account and set it up in a GIC. So the interest on that will be about $5,000. We'll pull that into use and leave the GIC still in place. No Japanese exchange program planned. Wake has not approached us to say they're interested in starting it back up again. And we, from our perspective, haven't pushed starting it back up again with them. Fire, just some 3-year averages on our fire fighting fees. That's the revenue we receive. In the budget, there will be $220,000 revenue from the Firefighters Association for the remaining portion of the outside burn props. So there will be a cost added into the capital, so they will offset each other, but no change to the town's financial position. And then there's an increased contribution from special areas just with some of these changes as per the fire services agreement with them. Fire, the East Central Emergency Training Program. So we had, they applied for grant funding to assist with training. And I think we had 12,600 in the budget. They got 7,900. So reduction there. The common services, the air handling unit repair work, council had budgeted for. The company didn't get out, so the funds were carried forward, from 2023. Streets and roads,
That
so,
air handling, that's on public works.
yes, that's on the, sorry, Public Works Building, yeah. The streets and roads, as council's aware, we approved, an increased draw from our MSI capital deferred of $654,000 to complete the downtown project. And Palliser, there still is $124,000 remaining in the engineering, for work not completed on the Palliser Pioneer Trail engineering, so we carried that forward from 2023. The airport, so a few things just to finish up there. So there's some grant funds still remaining to complete that project. And the contribution from special areas as per the airport agreement would go up as well. Water was really a non-issue, but there is, when we put in the 3-year averages and put everything in, there's a $200 increase on $1 million, so very insignificant. FCSS, there increase in the provincial grant of $1,000. Business and communication, so the money we have still sitting there in reserve from the West Electronic Sign project, so we haven't done anything with it. Mark's been trying to pursue the Nickelback group to ascertain their interest in that tour idea and having that as the tour start and having signs say, Nickelback tour starts here. He's getting, I think, a little frustrated that he's not getting any responses back, but, he was gonna continue to pursue that, so. Marina just increased the arena rental revenue. Again, that's based on the last 2 years average. Curling rink, again, an increase, and that would be the bill to the curling club. Just based on 2-year averages of the costs incurred. Community center, a reduction in the rental revenue, again, a 2-year average. Those are kind of the revenue changes. The expenditure changes, a decrease in our payroll software cost, an increase in our audit to match last year's cost of $3,000. They basically offset themselves. In our contracted services area of the budget, there's a savings of $12,439. It's made up of a bunch of little things, so increased costs for our financial software. Our internet access costs with Mascon have gone down. Server maintenance agreement up. Microsoft license fees up. Signatures up. We took the council renovation out and it suggested that we need to do a server upgrade. So, and then just a small one in our regional planning services, we had put the wrong amount in. It was what we paid Palliser. It was supposed to be 44,400. We put 44,000. So minor change there. Japanese exchange program. There's again no program plan, so there's reduction of. There's basically a net of $3,000 to the town between the not running the program. Police, our RCMP contract charges that we pay came in under budget, which was a nice surprise. So it came in $5,600 less, and that's an actual amount that's been paid. Fire, this is a big increase, and after we had our meeting, our budget meetings were around the same time, special areas had their budget meetings, and they made a motion at their board level to increase the volunteer fire pay from $30 an hour to $40 an hour. So that has an impact on us of basically using previous numbers. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Bowden.
When was the last increase in the firefighters' pay, do you know?
I'm gonna say a few years back, it went, I believe, from 25 to 30. But that was 3-4 years, I can't
Oh, at
remember.
least. And that one, like back in the day, was actually brought forward by the firefighters. This one was
That one,
not.
yes.
This was directly from the board. And it was a surprise, I think. warranted necessarily, but
Yeah, I know, speaking with our fire chief, there was not anything that was on the table from the fire departments asking for increase. It was simply brought forward at the board meeting and supported by the special areas board, at that time. So again, it's a big number there, but we do, get, that's offset as part of our agreement by 50%.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
But yeah, it was off guard. I think we're in a good situation, and I don't want to take the fact we're in a good situation for granted with our fire department and our volunteers. But I know a lot of volunteer departments are struggling to find, and I think that message is out there, and I don't know what the initiative was from the general special areas board to bring it forward, but I think it's a bit of recruitment and retention, they thought might be a benefit, so.
Well, and I think a lot of them donate their time when they're taking courses and that sort of thing in order to keep upgraded and all of that. So I think there is a lot of expense on their end as far as time wise to maintain all of that, the level of training that they
Yeah.
require. And
So that's a change to the budget from our December budget. Again, the ECTP, that's just an expenditure. We would transfer that to reserves for use in 2025. A couple of changes in common services. So we did, our repairs have been significantly higher on the building this spring. We did have the air handling unit, which we brought money forward, but we've had significant issues with our overhead doors. So we've had them realigned, we've had springs, we've had different things pushing. We just got another bill, I think close to 10 grand to get the doors all functioning and working again. So springs are breaking and different things. And our contracted vehicle repairs, we bumped that budget up for this year. Primarily, we've already had some major expenses with our Freightliner and our hydrovac, so almost 20 grand in repair costs to date. So we wanted to make the budget more realistic, knowing we were already at or over the original budget. Streets and roads just decreased the capital reserves, so 155, and that's because in 2024, with the downtown project, we'll have to dip into our 2024 allotment by 155, so we won't have that to be able to transfer to reserves for future use. Water plant, pretty much nothing. I just a point here on the visitor information center. I didn't put any dollars in because I don't. But just that we may need to, with our agreement with Harvest Sky on the operation of the DIC, there may be a requirement. I do know Mark texted me on the weekend, and it looks like he did get some Canada Summer Jobs approval, but he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure at that point in time how much. He hadn't had a chance to look at it, but he did get some notification that he did get some, which is much better than last year.
Yes.
Zip,
Did the
so.
town?
I was gonna say something's better than nothing.
Yeah, town hasn't heard anything yet, and I don't know if any of the other groups, whether the library or anybody have heard, but I know Mark texted me on Saturday or Sunday and said that he received notice, but he hadn't opened up the document to see how much he'd been approved for, so that's a positive sign. The other thing here, under ball diamonds, had a meeting with minor ball a week or two ago, and they would like the town to purchase a C-can for them for additional storage at the triplex. So they've done the research, they've got a C-can estimate from a company in Brooks I believe it's a 20-foot C-can with dual doors, sliding doors that they can have delivered here for $4,000. So I did tell them that I would be chatting with council about that, and I asked them where their funds were, and they had indicated that they have, their funds were tight. They'd expended a significant amount of money on equipment this year and bought another portable mound, so, that's, I included that amount in here for council's discussion. If you're comparing the new budget to the one in December, there you will see in a lot of areas some minor changes when we put in all the costs for 2012 for whether it's on the revenue side, but generally it's utility side. We get our final bills in and we've got a 3-year average, so it changes slightly from what we may have in there. The other big cost that we have is our insurance costs increased by $25,000. Again, we had budgeted a 5% increase, which was just under 7, and it came in at 25. As I say in my report, one of the reasons for that, other than insurance, is going up, but they did do a valuation of all of our buildings. So they do that every 5 years. They come out and they look at the buildings and see if you have the appropriate insurance for replacement costs. For example, if the arena burnt down, the cost of that replacement now is higher than it was 5 years ago. So they bumped up the replacement cost, which then bumps up the premium cost. So, but it does give you a little more comfort that you've got the right coverage in the event that something major does go wrong. So that's the expenditure changes. Capital, again, not too much. The West Electronic sign, the funds are in reserves. Fire department, we talked about the outside burn props. Streets and roads and Palliser, we talked earlier because they all have implications. Airport, we talked about. Cemetery, so we, as council's aware, we did order the columbarium last fall. We paid the deposit. We're waiting for the columbarium to be delivered, and we'll pull the remaining amount that was budgeted last year to pay for it. So 11,400 is the 50% cost. We did have another columbarium purchase in 25. We've moved that to 26. I think this will buy us time to 26. And at Fox Lake Park, when we were going through the capital budgets, we had a duplication of those projects, the pathway development, tree planting, and solar lights in 25. So we removed them from 2025 and they're only stand in 2026. BIC, we had a freezer unit for our ice cream. We were able to, through Harvest Skies community kitchen projects, they were able to purchase that freezer unit. So it's been purchased through Harvest Sky and Prairie Scan. And curling rink, we did have $20,000 for interior painting. So that's the interior of the ice surface area. But when I talked with Kevin, I said I was sure we had done it in the last 10 years. And Kevin didn't think we had, but we had. So he looked at it again and said it does not need to be painted. The arena definitely does, but the curling rink doesn't. So we pulled that out. And they reallocated the used truck with the tip deck to 2025. We're just trying to find something that may work better or not be as much money. So we just reallocated that to 2025. So right now with those changes, including, and what we'll have a discussion on here in a minute, the tax rate revenue, including bringing in more tax revenue than we anticipated. We have a surplus of $6,862. So, which is pretty tight on a $50 million budget, but, so before we get into discussion, I want to go on to the tax rate option page. So council understands that page, would have been in your package. So trying to explain the page in the format. So you can see there's 4 columns at the top. There's a no change. There's a decrease the tax rate, residential tax rate by 4%, by 3.5%, by 3%. And the residential rate, we didn't have as, non-residential, we didn't have as many options. Just because the, assessment value increase was fairly insignificant, so. 2024, our municipal tax rate was 11.0113. And if we left it at 11.0113, it would bring us in with our new assessment, 1,961,737. We looked at options going to decreasing the tax rate by 4%. So we would decrease it from 11.0113 to 10.5708.
So sorry.
Mistake?
Give us a half an hour.
Oh.
Find it.
I thought it was right there.
It's the very last one on our schedule, the non-residential property tax comparison.
Page 48.
Everybody, sorry, everybody's found it now?
I don't know that that's the right one, but it's
No,
not,
I
Should be
think
right
there's
above.
above it, keep going.
that's where I was, but
Right
it doesn't look
after.
at what.
Right after.
I'm getting
page-
above and I'm getting after.
Right after page 48.
What does all that mean?
It should be this one here.
That's what this looks like.
Okay, then go to this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it didn't bookmark. Here we go.
There we go.
Thank you. That's fine.
That was me.
I was just scrolling all over. the place. I was getting, it's before, it's after, it's before.
I was
something-
confused
Yeah.
before.
okay.
They're just playing with us.
Okay, all back to that page.
We have no
Yeah.
idea.
Page 77 on your agenda.
Yeah.
So as I said, the 2024 residential rate, municipal tax rate was 11.0113. We have options decreasing it by 4%, 3.5%, and 3%. By leaving it the same tax rate, we generate, we generate on the residential side 123,839 more than last year. By decreasing it to 4%, we generate 45,000. By decreasing it by 3.5, we generate 55, and decreasing it by 3, we generate 64. On the non-residential side, we have a no change, and then we left it at 1% because we don't have as much option. The assessments were fairly close. So last year, we were at 13.6894 as the tax rate. With a 1% decrease, it takes it down to 13.5525. We would still generate about 17,800 more than last year. And when you add them together, that gives you your total amount. So if we leave it at no change, we generate 151,000 more. If we decrease it by 4%, we generate 63,000. We decrease it by 3.5, we generate 72. And we decrease it by 3, we've got 82. So we recommended 82. Or sorry, we've recommended the 3%, which generates $82,000 more, which leaves us with a surplus of $6,000 at the end of the budget. If council wishes to look at any one of those options, we certainly can. What it would mean is that we either have to reduce levels of expenditure or bring in some dollars from surplus to balance, because we have to have a balanced budget. Anybody wants to start the conversation? Go
I
ahead.
would. I look at no change because, let's have more. Because you don't know what's going to happen later on in the year with expenses and everything else. So having a little extra is better than having to swap a lot of money out later in the year. We got a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And if you don't have stuff in reserves, we're starting to scrounge and
Certainly is an option. Again, we have to look back to the impact that has on our taxpayers, and council has to be comfortable with whichever decision they choose.
Council Wilson?
I'm happy with the recommended decrease, 3%, 1%. It's the same conversation every year. We set the budget, we have our projections and changes. And ever since, I remember the first budget in council 6 years ago was the fight of no increase it, don't reduce it now, it's gonna get worse, what if? Never have we had to do that. Maybe in 10 years I'll have to eat my words, but I'm comfortable with this. We've planned for increases in everything already. And with the increased assessment, it's just hard to call it a decrease. I mean, the mill rate's reduced, but.
That's right, yeah, when we wanna be clear on that,
Increasing more.
we talk about a decrease in the tax rate, that doesn't necessarily mean a decrease in the
Yeah.
amount of tax paid.
I'm comfortable with the recommendations.
And we did also in your package, give you some comparisons on how it would affect different, properties in town. And, with the municipal increase as well as the, school in Acadia. So kind of give you an idea, there will be some significant tax increases to some of our businesses, but as you see in the report, the reason for that is their assessments have gone up significantly. And there will be some on the housing side, because their assessments have gone up significantly for one reason or another, whether there was some improvements made, whether there was, they bought it at a significantly higher price. But, just kind of want some discussion and direction, because we want to bring this back to council for approval at the May 14th meeting, so it's nicer to kind of walk away from today with a direction than trying to do this on the spot in the meeting and adjusting and not adjusting. But I just want to be clear, the 3% increase that we've recommended still does bring in more than we anticipated on municipal tax by 26,000 from what the original December budget was. So not a huge amount on a $15 million budget, but it is 26,000 more we would be collecting from our taxpayers. If that's the rate council wants to go with. Mr. Mayor, you're quiet.
I'm just doing some,
Mental math?
yeah.
So which one did Kyle?
The proposed.
3%.
Proposed highway one.
The one on the right-hand side.
That leaves us with a surplus of $6,862.
Which isn't a whole lot to deal with, 6,000.
And just remember too, even with that budgeted surplus of 6,800, we're still are bringing in money from surplus as well too, so, but we do have some surplus so that we can bring in, and we have built the budget on bringing some in, so.
I think I'm comfortable with the recommended as well. Although I'd like to see it reduced more, but I think,
Well, if they already got or if they're gonna have an increase because of the assessments, right? But this will kind of somewhat, maybe.
Well, the hope is the reduction of the residential tax rate by 3% offsets some of that, and it really depends on your assessment. If you look at the list of properties we gave you, some people's whose assessment didn't change much will actually see less on their bill.
Yeah, it's a helpful page to see these real numbers.
But a majority of them, some of them, like I said, if some of them got a larger assessment increase than others, they'll be paying more. Those that received average or less will probably be the same or paying a little bit less, so.
Councilor,
The only downside to that is over the next month or two, there are people who may have had a significant increase who will appeal it. So these numbers are based on no one appealing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
assessment value. And technically the town said, well, we didn't change the value of your property, it's just the reality of the market. So the 6,000 is it's a little tight, but you work magic, and I appreciate your magical power. So I'm not too concerned about that being adjusted slightly. So I'm okay with the decrease, because it's just been a hard year for a lot of people. So
I think you're 100% right, Counselor Murphy. We haven't had any appeals. Assessments have been out for a month, I'm saying.
yeah,
I think, and I don't know the date, I don't think Winona knows it, it's sometime early 9th, 10th of May.
it's
And
usually mid-May,
Yeah,
yes.
it's
sticks in my mind as the appeal deadline,
Okay.
and there might be some people who will, appeal, or there might be some conversations between property owner and an assessor where there will be some adjustments.
Yeah.
But that happens normally all the time. There are some. I know that when they first went out, there was a little bit of discussion, but since then it's been relatively quiet. I know some of our residents who received a significant tax or assessment increase weren't necessarily happy about it, but I think they understood when they talked to the assessor that if it was assessed at, the property was assessed at $400,000 and we paid 500 and some thousand for it, that's the value you gave to that property. So they've adjusted it, but I know there's a significant, and the challenge we quite often find too is the rural people and special areas have a significantly lower tax rate.
Oh, yes.
So when they move from the farm and they move into town, they go, what? I'm paying this for one house? I didn't pay that for 6 quarters.
and a house.
And a house, so, but it's just the way the system works, unfortunately. But by reducing the tax rate a little bit, it does try to help offset that increase in assessment.
I'm okay with the 3% and 1% decrease.
Yeah, I am too, actually. I did not vote in favor of a tax increase, period. I think that we're a community that has much, and we're very fortunate to have all we have in our community. But sometimes I think we have to look internally and think, what is sustainable? What do we really need? Because I mean, when I'm listening to my taxpayers and they're saying, like, we don't want to pay any more taxes, I'm hearing those voices. I'm also one of those people too.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay any more taxes. I own a business here. I own, residential property. Am I thankful for all the extras? Yes, I am. Is it necessary that we maybe have all the extras? Sometimes you have to consider all those things too. So I'm okay with the decrease of at 3% and decrease of 1%, which leaves us a surplus of 6,862. But with that said, I'm still was still never in favor of voting in favor of any kind of tax increase.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're the only one we haven't heard from.
I can support the 3 and 1. Yeah, I would like to build some reserves. That's been my, I don't know what you want to call it,
Position.
for, since we got on. We're pulling some money out of reserves now to do some of the things we're doing. I would just like to not have to pull any money out of reserves to do what we're doing.
I guess, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I think sometime, at some point, we need to maybe have that conversation about what it looks like. I mean, we do have reserve dollars. I mean, how do we, accumulate reserve dollars? do we continue to, increase our taxes on the backs of our, citizens and reserve those dollars? Do we look at maybe some cutbacks internally? Do we look at, some of our, our assets and what we maintain? I mean, I think I've never really had that conversation around this table, but what that looks like, how you begin to, work on a process of putting more reserve dollars away if that's what we're planning on doing.
I just don't wanna get caught in a, for lack of a better term, in the soyus where they had to increase, I think it was 19.
Well, they were talking 38% at one time.
Edmonton was 8.9,
Yeah.
just announced this morning. I
There's
just,
a reserve.
I would be okay with 2 or 3%. I believe that was the conversation we had with, who was here, saying we weren't increasing 3%, that we were going backwards.
Oh, Mark, what
Mark.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna go backwards, and I don't wanna be the guy. When it's all said and done, that, we got through our term and, we left the future council with no reserves and then stand and say, well, we didn't spend any money, we didn't increase any taxes. I just don't wanna be that guy. We got this in good shape, and I wanna leave it in better shape if I can.
Well, we did have an assessment on all our properties. And as you said, it really indicated where we're at with our properties, right? We're in pretty good shape.
When you say you mean on the insurance side? And well, the building
Yeah,
conditions.
yeah,
No doubt, Councillor Warwick, the buildings and the facilities we own are in, I would say, relatively good shape. But I do have concerns down the road, more long-term, when you look at, like, our arena is almost 45 years old. You add another 10, 15 years onto that, you're pushing 55, 60. And the concern I have is that building at that time is probably 25 million, $30 million building.
Plus,
So that's kind of my fear, but again, you can't, in today's world, you gotta balance that with expectations on what is fair to our taxpayers. But there are some, like I said, the buildings right now, I have no issue with the condition they're in. They're in good condition, but they are aging, and I know when they get to that point, are we putting good money after bad, but can we afford $25-30 million for a new arena?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen in some municipalities over the years, a new arena complex was a centennial project, or it was, based on some, yeah.
It was the other comment I'll make too, and we know it doesn't appear, at least provincially, that there's monies in the coffers for support for these projects. And you listen to our Minister of Finance speak, and he's watching the dollars very closely. I don't know, certainly if we were going to build a new arena for $30 million, you'd be looking for significant contributions from our senior levels of government to assist with it. But whether, like, I think it's harder on the provincial side right now, because they are paying significant attention to it. Where they're at financially, I'm not gonna question our federal government, who is approved a $40 billion deficit budget, so, but our province is trying to be very fiscally responsible as they can, and that might mean less dollars available for those projects. But right now, as we sit, I don't have any issues. We are entering into, probably this downtown project will be the biggest infrastructure project the town has done. So, we talk about what we have in the bank. But it's gonna, we still have to pay that $6.5 million. We'll get a good portion of that back from the feds, but we have to wait for the money to come back from them too. So I'm not worried about cash flow, but it is a large project, and if council is able to move forward next year with Palliser Pioneer, that's again another large infrastructure
Well, 1.7
project.
estimated now,
On the bridge, yeah,
it's another 1.7.
Yeah.
And the Pioneer Palliser one, I mean, if we don't do it.
Yeah, it
it's
could
gonna
be a lot
It'll
more.
be a lot more, because we have to do infrastructure as well, or sorry, infrastructure, the
base.
base and stuff, so, you-
As we
you could-
know,
You could only hold on so long, and then it just, well, as an example, the tennis courts.
yeah,
You know, we held off and held off, and held off, and then it cost a whole bunch of money.
as we know, if money was unlimited, we could do a
Oh.
lot of things, and I know you'll get requests from people saying, why don't we do this road? Why don't we fix this? Why don't we do that? We can only do what we can within the resources we have, so. Go ahead, Senator.
And I think, I don't think the government would even look at investing into a community that isn't growing or isn't putting money into maintaining some of their infrastructure and that sort of thing. So the fact that that money is being allocated towards stuff that has never been done before, like other councils never, they never even decided to do some investments on some of that.
And the
So it's
interesting-
costing us now.
The interesting point of your comment is, I know we talked, a month or two ago at a council meeting about municipal indicators. And we failed the municipal indicator because we only had, Councillor Thorough put his name forward in by-election. I don't worry about that, failure. But one of the indicators that the province does monitor is how much you're investing in your infrastructure. And if you're not investing money in your infrastructure to the appropriate level that they determine, you will get a failure there because you're not doing what you're doing to keep upgrading your infrastructure, because we know it gets older every year and gets technically in worse condition every year, so.
It seems to me that they're more responsive to, as Mr. Neal has used the term, shovel-ready projects.
100%.
So I mean, we've got the Palliser Pioneer project ready to
And
go.
that's something that I will commend council for, because that's been one of the challenges we've had in previous years moving forward, is councils hadn't allocated the engineering money up front. So now we'll be able to have a tender-ready project for Pioneer and Palliser if something came along. The process always was before, we want to do that, so council approves the money, then we started the engineering. We're gonna be ready and prepared and to move forward. And if there was any fiscal stimulus dollars or anything coming where they're looking for shovel-ready projects, we can go, here it is. So it's good to be prepared in that regard.
Well, and be proactive.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Did you have your hand up, Councilor Murphy, or Councilor Thorough?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's say there with that bridge, you know, if we don't get funding, that bridge has to be replaced.
ultimately, it's gonna happen.
Because, we look at it, I don't think it'll have another year or two, you know, with the traffic that's going
Yeah.
over. So why I look at the budget the way, we gotta put some more back into reserves, because we took a big chunk out. You know, if you don't replace it, we're just depleting what we.
So
We're not gonna replace
there
it.
is some going back in, Councilor
Yeah.
Olson.
Well, I just want to point out this is the budget. This is
Yeah.
the guess. It's got everything. Every single year, when we go through the whole year, there's more into reserves. We end up with $150,000. Maybe not every year. This one might be a little tougher. Every year in the past, though, due to good budgeting, that there is more. That's not $6,000. It's $156,000 by the end of it. So, again, it's a budget.
It's
At the end of the
a,
year, when we look at the past, there is more, significantly more
Yeah.
going in than what the budget
Yeah.
says.
Oh, I'm not trying to fear monger,
No.
Councilor Olson, I'm
Yeah, just nobody brought that up.
yeah, oh no, for sure.
and even through this, even through this budget, so this budget does reflect, we transfer $90,000 a year into a rec reserve. It does, through our utility fees, it does put $100,000 a year into sewer and water.
Yeah.
It does, this budget as it sits now puts $203,000 of the extra special areas money into a streets and roads reserve. So we are putting some money aside. In a perfect world, are we putting what we should, no, but very few municipalities can put what they should because it would break the taxpayers. But I don't disagree, there's always going to be large ticket items, and as Councilor Thurl said, we've been keeping our fingers crossed that we're gonna get 75% funding on the bridge. We're gonna come to a point where we're gonna say, we don't get it, we're gonna have to spend the 1.7 is ours. Which hopefully we don't come to that point, but it is a potential option.
Barricades are only $400.
Yeah.
And by then it won't be 1.7, it'll be 2.8.
And we might have to then, pave South Municipal Road, because all the traffic will be detouring, Martha.
Yeah,
Yeah, she said.
it's already going there.
Well, actually, on that note, the bridge has gone from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Nell, but it's went from 1.4 to 1.7 in the 3 years I've been here, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it'll be at 2.8 by the time we get to
So,
it, yeah.
okay,
Any further
I was
comments or
just gonna
questions?
say, any more questions, comments? Counselor Olson,
I didn't do the last couple.
Well, we don't need a motion, like, we can't make that decision
Oh,
motion here today. But I
just.
just wanna have that direction going in, so I know what to prepare for approval on the 14th, so.
I'm okay.
You wanna-
With the 3 and 1.
I can work with it.
So I think that's a consensus that we take your recommendation.
And so, yeah,
Anybody being opposed to it? Okay,
That's not a motion, so. it doesn't
No,
matter.
no,
Only consensus.
but you can poll.
Read your mind.
You can poll, that's not a problem.
council roundtable.
no, we need a
Oh,
motion just to accept the reports.
Oh, sorry,
From,
CEO report, right?
no,
here.
the
Budget.
6.01.
Motion to accept the report for information, Counselor Bowden, all in favor? Carried. Roundtable. Starting at the front, Mr. Kroll.
I got a Vets Memorial Highway meeting on Friday. I guess, I don't know if this is the time, but where are we at with pace? Like,
As I understand, the project hasn't even been applied for yet.
No,
And
But
legal.
we're just gonna leave it at that, like, we're gonna wait until they've already applied, and we can't.
You can't
What
do
else can
anything
we do?
until we apply.
it's not an
We don't know
actual
for
project
sure.
till they make their application.
Yeah, it's just,
But can't we make AUC aware that we're not,
No,
nope.
AUC will go,
not in favor of it?
AUC will go, we don't have a project, so what are you not in favor of?
Yeah.
Until they get that
Yeah, no,
project.
I hear you, Counselor Crowe,
No,
but
I mean-
unfortunately, until there's something actually concrete to be opposed to, we're kind of holding the flag until we can waive it.
But are we waiting for some more stuff from them as far as any more regarding the pilots and such? I think they were doing something else, weren't they?
They've got more
Can't
reports,
remember.
don't they?
Yeah, there was more info they were gonna
Like
grab.
as far as the glare, gluten glare, were they looking at another different bypass, different approach or something, or?
No,
or a
they-
smaller
did their-
area?
the question was, Councilor Bowden, if council wished to retain another company to
Oh, to do it in place. of-
check their research, check their information and like, again, and I don't know if we want to go down that road until they actually submit their application in case they, and I don't know, I don't have any indication they're not gonna move forward, but in case they decide they're not gonna move forward, then we're throwing good money away, so. But that's my understanding. I have not heard or from anyone that they have actually made the formal application to AUC yet.
Counselor Bowden?
I attended the AHS, community, consultation. I did, Councillor Cole and, Councillor Warwick. And, very informative, very good presentation, and, it is available online. Through a website I can find for you. I don't know off the top of my head, but, And it was very informative, a lot of feedback, and, I hope, something comes of it. The meeting, the presentation in Hanna was 86th or something of the groups that they've met with over time. And I also attended the PET, as a, guest, I guess. And very informative and so much going on. Yeah, it's pretty exciting and such, so. That's all I have.
So just to comment on the AHS consultations. I know they mentioned at the consultations that they're looking at setting up 12 regional health committees. I don't know if I want to call them boards,
Yeah.
but I did see something the other day, so you might want to look if you're interested, but I did see something, press release or something come out from the province that they were starting to open up applications for those 12 boards, committees,
Bodies.
whatever you want to call them. I don't know if they're a board or a committee or whatever, but, and it looked like they were going to start that process, but I've seen very little about it. I'm hoping if they're going down that road, we'll see a lot more, on how to apply and when and where and how, if people are interested in sitting on those or putting their name forward to sit on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cause I don't know, they certainly didn't reflect anything at the meeting, even in terms of what the region's gonna look like. Like they didn't get into any of those specifics, they just said 12, and I find it kind of hard that they don't even have the regions established or published, and they're recruiting for people to sit on these committees, so. But I did see something just briefly the other day on the news that they're starting to recruit, so.
I would think they probably divide the divisions up like they did when they regionalized all the hospitals, you
Kind of
know.
like the David Thompson era, Fred, or
Well, we were in Drum, Three Hills, Strathmore, Boone, Serial. That was our area. When
Yeah.
we were Health Authority 5, that was our area.
Councilor Roy?
Yes, as mentioned, I was at the Alberta Health Services. I thought it was a really good dialogue. I hope that they really take consideration of we had some professionals at the table and I thought the dialogue was really good. I really hope they consider some of the points that were made that are highly affecting our, remote rural health facilities. I also attended, PEP. We had two, guests at our last PEP meeting. We had the CEO from Coronation and the mayor from Brooks at our last PEP meeting because they had indicated they wanted to attain membership there. So they did, and there was a motion that we would accept their membership. They were considering what the membership looks like. And I don't have that paper before me right now, but I think it was $1.30 for under 5,000, and then
Yes, it
from
was.
5 to 10, it was $1. They're trying, because what has happened now, because there's some discrepancies between some larger municipalities and some, not as large of municipalities, is the discrepancy in dollars. So some of the municipalities have put a formal request forward on what they think is acceptable for their membership to PEP. So we're gonna have some more discussion around that at our next executive meeting because it's, I don't know, that's a.
So
tough-
that $30 was just a recommendation then?
Well, and they use that one for under, I believe that was
5,000
under
people.
5,000 people.
Was
And
$1.30.
then, was $1.30, then above from 5 to 10, it was $1.
Correct.
And then after the 10,000, it was a certain denomination of dollars.
Flat rate.
Yeah,
So just the history on that is up until, I'm gonna guess 3 or 4 years ago, it was $1 flat across the board for everyone.
right.
Then dollars were a little tighter, so they bumped up. I think we went to $1.10, $1.15, $1.30. Over a 3-year period, we went from $1 to $1.30, but that was across the board. So Medicine Hat pays $1.30, we pay $1.30, Coronation pays $1.30. But now it looks like the board must be looking at some different options then in regard to.
Yes, and I will have more information on that next. I don't have that information
Okay.
before me right now, just.
So let's get the proposal that the board is considering.
Yes, yeah, well, and I mean, I think they're looking we're looking for input. It's just a tough one to decide, but you know what, because your numbers are low, you pay a larger amount. Your numbers are between 5 and 10, you pay I don't understand the whole philosophy behind it. I think, to me, in my opinion, if it's $1 per membership, it should be that across the board. That creates, fairness for everybody. But unfortunately, that's not how all municipalities feel about it either. So that has caused some discrepancies amongst the members.
Well, and the large player in PEP is Medicine Hat.
For sure.
So
For sure.
Medicine Hat pulls out of PEP, that's half or more of their funding.
And they are concerned about that.
So you gotta try and keep them satisfied in being a member, so.
So anyhow, there's lots of notes in my report that will come to the next meeting. If you wanna, look through them, I've taken notes, and, if you have anybody has any questions. Our AGM is on June 14th in Rolling Hills, so that's all I have to say.
Perfect, Counselor Olson.
No, I don't have much. I'm doing it the next meeting, but golf course opens in 3 days.
Yeah.
It'll feel like summer soon.
Counselor Murphy.
Since our last council meeting, I've been at Acadia Foundation, we had the library open house. Thank you for attending. Thank you,
No, you're welcome, it was good.
Councilor Bowden. Thank you, Kim, for attending.
Snacks were awesome.
Yeah,
And then I was in Strathmore for Marigold. I'm the chair of the HR committee, so I had to go Friday and then go back Saturday. And that's about it. It's been good.
Counselor Farrell.
Not much, I think our next community service board is in May.
yeah.
I sat chat, it's very informative. Some of the projects, some of the ideas, some of the thoughts. It's interesting, it's with any board with multiple, has different ideas of what's important. That board seemed to be fairly uniform in their direction, which was nice to see. I did, the volunteer appreciation, set in on that. It is absolutely amazing. I wrote out a speech, and I'm getting better at this because usually I just buy it, like that. And so I had a speech, and I kind of made a list of, a dozen or so different organizations that have volunteers. And as I'm sitting there having the appetizers, you look around the room and you go, oh, forgot that one, forgot that one, forgot that one, forgot that one. And there's just so many different groups and people that are involved. It's interesting that a lot of people have multiple hats, for lack of a better term. But it still goes back to this community. The amount of support is phenomenal. I don't know what you had out for the ball. I was still working when you were
Well,
wrapping up.
last night was, the cleanup at the triplex was outstanding.
Yeah, I know the lacrosse team did Turtle Park, I believe.
The Turtle Park or RCMP?
Could be RCMP. I don't remember.
I think they normally kind of do the RCMP park
Okay.
around the
Yeah.
arena.
But like I said, the amount of support and volunteerism is just, it's insane, the commitment and level of passion, I guess, for lack of a better. The rodeo committee, sounds like they've got a few more new people, so some fresh faces on that group. And not to single anybody out, but it's surprising how many people are out there and how many people need help.
Well, and we're approaching the rummage sale, which uses a tremendous number of volunteers.
Well, and it was funny because that was one of the projects this morning, get my truck and trailer ready to haul stuff to the rummage sale for.
Yeah.
It's amazing what we have in the community. So then I'd like to thank everybody that volunteers and helps out in any time they do or can. So,
So I'm gonna put you on the spot, Mr. Mayor.
yes,
So you were able to attend, the Mayors and Reeves portion.
I did not because I had to
Oh,
get
you had
back
to
to
leave?
work. Yes.
Okay, cause I talked briefly with Michelle Taves, and she indicated there was quite a discussion around Bill 18 and the feds, the province's position on agreements between municipalities and feds, and she said there was quite a diverse
Opinion.
opinion
Yeah.
around the table from those there, so.
Go, Councilor.
You know what, I didn't get to sit in on all that because, I was called out to talk to another individual, Mr. J Slam. We had another item to discuss. Unfortunately, I missed some of that conversation, so I can't tell you exactly what went on around
Okay.
that. But it was still going on when I did enter back into the room, and I could tell it was very divided.
But and my comments around that is, I understand what the province is trying to do to a certain degree in terms of taking back a little bit more control. But my biggest fear is, an example is, we just got approved for $3,000, $3,300 for Canada Day from the federal government. Does that mean the province has to review our application, sign
Well,
off
back
on
to
our
that red
application
tape
for
crap.
$3,300? Like, I hope they set whether it's a number and say anything under $100,000 or whatever that number is,
Better define what
we
it
can
is.
move forward, but if they're gonna wanna get involved in some of these little
Well,
things
summer
like that,
employment, for
it's
example,
counted summer jobs.
like, I mean, there's so, and I mean, again, back to the roles that we play and, you know, you sit back and you hear things and then all of a sudden go, holy crap, that affects me.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's, yeah, I was in favor of it when I initially heard it because I'm not that I don't support the federal government, but I don't support some of the things they do. And then all of a sudden, when you got thinking about it, you know, how it affects us as a community. And then the same thing with the research grants and stuff like
Yeah.
that, like why is the provincial government sticking their fingers into that pie, for lack of a better term?
I know they're trying to get equity, and I appreciate that, we all want equity. But at the end of the day, is finding that equity worth pursuing on
Well,
communities
at what
that get
cost?
$3,000 for Canada Day?
Well, coal-affected communities, all the money that came
That's right.
to, Harvest Sky was all federal
Yeah.
money, and
Yeah.
because it was based on a federal decision. You know, it wasn't a provincial decision to get rid of coal, it was federal, and I think
Well,
they should be
it was a
responsible.
provincial decision to get rid of coal.
But
That
when
was
it was,
the
before,
NDP
it was
government.
based on kind of the direction the feds were going as well.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Feds certainly were leaning that way, but
Yeah.
it was
Oh,
the
yeah,
NDP
yeah.
government that came in and
Yeah,
made
yeah,
that
but-
decision, so.
But
Across the
still, it
average.
affects the whole country. and-
Oh, no, for
yeah.
sure.
So, yeah, I just was curious, because I did know Michelle said you had to leave early, but I wasn't sure if you got any of the mayors and recent.
No,
I
I
know it
didn't.
kind of ran behind.
Well, yeah, and I had good intentions, and I had coverage till 2 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock, my coverage called me and went, I gotta leave, and I'm going to be stretched out to 2:30. And he did, and like I said, it was just.
Yeah,
everything ran
okay, I
really
was just
long.
curious, because I
No.
knew she said there was quite a discussion
Yeah,
about that.
There was discussion during lunch about it, so. Okay, hearing nothing else, we'll adjourn, what time is this, Joe?
10:26.
10:26, perfect. Thank you, everyone, lots of stuff going on, so. Rummage sale.
Yeah.